Hi guys, I'm back again today with another video, and today we're checking out 5 things American schools taught her that made no sense in Europe. So I'm intrigued because we're nosy as fudge, even if these two countries don't correlate to our existence. Like it doesn't have to do anything with our existence. We still want to know, and maybe it does have to do with our existence. We'll never know until we watch, wouldn't we? But anyways, beautiful peeps, before we start off, forget to subscribe, click the bell button, and let's find out.
I didn't realize just how much American schools shape the way that I think
Oh, I
until
thought
I
it was
left the
like
country. And I'm not talking about what I learned academically. I'm
something,
talking
but
about
it's
the things that I absorbed without even realizing it. About work, about obedience, about success. At the time, all of it felt completely normal. It wasn't until I moved abroad that some of these lessons started to fall apart. This video is about 5 things that we're taught early as Americans that shape the way we live our lives as adults and start to make a lot less sense once we finally step outside of them. One of the first things that started to feel
mm.
strange to me after living abroad was how much emphasis Americans put on being nice. And I don't mean kind, I mean pleasant, agreeable, non confrontational. In the US, we're taught pretty early that being nice means not making things uncomfortable. So instead of saying what we
Well, you haven't met me yet, though. I'm nice. Okay, I'm not saying I'm not. I don't do this because I wanna like say mean things to people. But I've got into trouble twice for being honest than telling somebody a lie. Twice. One of them American, of course, like American Filipino. And the second one, not Filipino, another nationality. And yeah, I was like, I'm just being honest. Like, it's me. This is who I am. And I'm not, and it wasn't anything rude. It's not like, oh, you look fat. Or it's not even, it's just like one was an emoji because I didn't put emoji in my freaking message. It's who I am. That's how I text. Like now I use emoji because of her. But not so much. But I do now. Okay. And the other one, I was just telling her what I like about her, and she didn't like it. She wanted more. Like, I don't know, people. Some people just. Uh, are we friends? No.
We're taught pretty early that being nice means not making things uncomfortable. So instead of saying what we actually think, we soften it. We smile, we add extra words, we avoid saying things directly. Think about just how often we say things like, no worries at all, when there are, in fact, many worries. Or, it's totally fine, when something isn't. And the famous, let me get back to you, when we already know that the answer is no. None of that is
I hate
dishonest in a
those.
dramatic way. It's just indirect. And growing up, that makes sense. You're rewarded for being easy to work with, for not causing problems, for keeping things smooth. Discomfort is treated like something to avoid and not like something to work through. But when you take that habit abroad, especially in places like France or most of Europe, it starts to break down because directness isn't seen as rude there. It's seen as efficient, respectful, clear. So when someone tells you plainly, no, that doesn't work, or I don't agree, they're not being cold, they're just being honest. And this is where the culture shock really hits because Americans often walk away thinking, wow, that felt really harsh, while the other person walks away thinking, that was just a normal
That's what
conversation.
make
The
people
misunderstanding
entitled.
isn't about the tone that the person used, it's about what we're taught politeness is supposed to look like. In the US, politeness means protecting feelings. In Europe, politeness often means respecting reality. And once you start noticing this pattern, you start to see it everywhere at work, in friendships, in feedback, in conflict. We're trained to smooth things over instead of just saying what's true. And that habit doesn't just shape the way that we talk to people, it shapes how comfortable we
Maybe that's why I have a little bit of like, I've noticed like, how do you call it? Because I suppress so much of what I want, because this culture also where I live and people around me just cannot accept reality. So I have to like, hi, how are you? Oh, it's fine. It's no bother. Yes, I will walk 2 hours to come and give you the remote. Of course, no problem. Oh, you didn't tell me you're coming to my house. Oh, I have to invite you in and cook you a meal and make your bed. Oh, no worries, no hassle. So annoying. The culture here is to accommodate how and tolerate everything, basically. Um, and it's just pissing me off, right? It pisses me off. And maybe that's the reason why like I pull away so much from so many people because I don't like the way things are done here. Like nobody gives you space. Everybody's just in your face all the time, and you can't be honest because it's considered rude. Like I'm so done with this place, to be honest.
just saying what's true. And that habit doesn't just shape the way that we talk to people, it shapes how comfortable we are with discomfort in general. And that matters a lot more than it sounds.
Productivity equals worth.
One of the clearest lessons we learned growing up in the US is this: being productive means being worthy, and it starts early. In school, productivity isn't just encouraged, it's rewarded. Perfect attendance becomes a badge of honor.
Oh,
Showing
yeah.
up no matter what is framed as responsibility. You're praised for pushing through a sickness, for never missing a day, for being reliable, and being busy is treated as proof that you're doing something right. More homework, more activities, a schedule that's always full. Rest isn't built into the system, it's something that you squeeze in around the edges. And what you're really learning isn't time management. You're learning that endurance is a virtue. That if you push through discomfort, you're doing life correctly. And that lesson sticks with you. When you leave school, the structure changes, but the lesson doesn't. In work culture, being busy is treated as a moral signal. You're respected for staying late, for answering emails quickly, for powering through your exhaustion. Hustle becomes a stand-in for responsibility, and rest starts to feel like something that you have to justify. So even when no one is explicitly telling you to work harder, you feel it. You feel guilty for slowing
Mm,
down. You feel anxious when your calendar isn't full. You feel like you need to earn your downtime. This is where things start to crack when you live abroad. Because in many European cultures, rest isn't treated as a reward. It's treated as part of the structure. Time off is expected. Sick
like
days are normal. Pace matters. So Americans often arrive feeling like they need to prove themselves, even when no one asks them to. And once you learn that your worth is proven through endurance, it makes sense that questioning the system feels uncomfortable. It makes sense that slowing down feels wrong. Because this isn't just about work, it's about identity. And this
patriotism
is where it
is
stopped
a
feeling like a
team.
set of habits and started feeling like something much deeper: the excessive patriotism. And I don't mean the loud, obvious stuff like slogans, hats, or flags on clothing. I mean the quiet, everyday version, the kind that we grow up with. Saying the Pledge of Allegiance every morning at school, standing for the national anthem before sports games, flags in classrooms, flags in hallways, flags at assemblies, flags on front porches.
Oh, let me tell you this. I don't know if any country does this, but let me know in the comments if you do. But in our cinemas, sometimes I don't know if they stopped it, but I recently went to the cinema and we didn't do this. But I don't know when the last time I went to, because it's been a while since recently because of Odyssey and Spider Man. But like the last time I went to the cinema, probably let's say 2 years ago, right? We still do the national anthem before a movie. And maybe some cinemas still do it, I'm not sure. But the one that I went to recently, they didn't. And also, when we watch concerts, we do the national anthem before. So let me know if your countries do that too, or we're weird.
Flags on car bumpers. None of that was optional, and none of it felt extreme at the time. It just felt normal. So normal that you don't even think of it as a belief. It's just part of the environment you're raised in. And it wasn't until I lived abroad that I had a moment of distance. And once you step outside of that environment, you realize something a little uncomfortable. If another country asked children to pledge loyalty every day, filled schools with national symbols, and built rituals of loyalty into ordinary events, we'd probably call that propaganda. And I don't say that as an accusation, I say it as an observation. When something is introduced to you as a child, before you even have the words to question it, it doesn't feel political. It doesn't feel like an opinion. It just feels like how the world works. And that's the part that's easy to miss, because you're not asked whether or not you agree with it. You're not invited to think about it. You're just expected to grow up inside of it. In many parts of Europe, patriotism exists, but it shows up very differently. You don't repeat loyalty statements every day. You don't perform national identity as part of your routine. And that doesn't mean that people care less about their country. It means that national identity isn't constantly reinforced through repetition. And that difference matters, because when loyalty becomes habitual, questioning it feels like a betrayal. So later in life, when people start questioning systems, work, government, culture, expectations, it doesn't just feel challenging, it feels wrong. So once we understand that this conditioning happens early, it becomes easier to see why most Americans feel like following the rules feels safer than challenging them, and why stepping outside the expected path can make you feel anxious or disloyal, even when it makes logical sense. When you grow up inside systems where loyalty is pushed so heavily, authority starts to feel personal. Not because anyone explicitly tells you not to question it, but because questioning authority feels like crossing a line. In school, you're taught to follow rules before you're taught how to evaluate them. You're rewarded for compliance, for doing what's expected, for staying in line, for not causing problems. And over time, that turns into something deeper. You don't just learn how to follow rules, you learn that good people follow the rules. And this is where loyalty gets confused with obedience. Because in the US especially, criticism is often framed as negativity. If you question something, it's usually framed as complaining or as being
Yeah.
ungrateful. So instead of asking, is this system working? We ask, am I allowed to question this? That's a very different mindset. And this is why leaving the country, or even seriously questioning life back home, can feel so emotionally charged. Not because you hate where you came from, but because leaving can feel like a rejection, like you're being disloyal, like you're turning your back on something that you were taught to respect. Whether they realize it or not, that's a tension that a lot of people sit with. On the one hand, things in the US aren't working for them anymore. On the other hand, questioning it feels wrong. So they stay stuck in the middle. And not because of lack of information, but because they've been taught that following the rules is part of being a good person. They don't stay in the US because they lack
Same here.
options. They stay because leaving feels like breaking a rule. And when all of these lessons start to stack on top of each other, they form something that most of us don't realize we've been following since day one: a script.
When I say same here, I'm not.
In the
I,
US,
I don't mean like the whole sentence that she said, but in terms of like when you question, people think that you are complaining, like those stuff. But people do leave the country because our country is corrupt.
following since day one: a script. In the US, there's a very clear idea of how a good life is supposed to unfold. You're a good student, so you go to a good college, then you get a good job, you work really hard, you stay really busy, and eventually you're rewarded with visible success. And the key word here is visible, because in the US, success isn't just something you're supposed to feel, it's
Visible.
something you're supposed to show. A job title that makes sense, a lifestyle that looks impressive, a pace of life that signals ambition. And within that script, life is always scheduled for later. You work now and you rest later. You enjoy
I know.
yourself
I've
once
seen
you've
this.
earned it. Burnout is often treated like a phase of life that you're supposed to push through, and not a sign that the setup itself isn't working. And exhaustion becomes something you normalize. This is also where convenience starts to win over quality. Faster is treated as better. More efficient is treated as better. And scaling up is treated as progress, even when the actual experience gets worse. Food is an easy place to see this. Meals are designed to be quicker, cheaper, and easier to produce at scale. So ingredients get simplified, flavors get flatter, and eating becomes about speed and calories, and not enjoyment or quality. You're encouraged to eat in your car, eat at your desk, eat while doing something else. But it's not just food. It also shows up at work. Emails replace conversations, meetings replace thinking. Everything is optimized to move faster, even when it creates more confusion. It shows up in how we spend our time. Errands get bundled, schedules get packed, free time becomes something that you squeeze squeeze in between obligations, and slowing down starts to feel irresponsible. So your days feel tighter. You're always moving, but you're rarely getting anywhere. And life starts to feel like something you're constantly managing, not something that you're actually present for. And this is why life in Europe often feels slower to Americans. Not because people in Europe are less ambitious, but because the script is different. Life isn't treated as something you postpone. Time is part of the value. Rest is built in. And success doesn't always need to announce itself. And this is the part people don't talk about. When you step outside the American life script, it can almost feel like you're falling behind, even if your life actually feels better, because the markers that you've been taught to measure yourself by no longer apply. And without those markers, it's easy to mistake alignment for failure. And that's why so many people today feel so burnt out, restless, and anxious, even when they've done everything right, even when they've perfectly followed the life script, because the script simply wasn't designed to be sustainable. And once you see that script for what it is, you get a choice that you didn't realize you had. You can keep chasing the version of success you were taught to perform, or you can start defining a life that actually works for you. And even with that perspective, seeing the US from the outside doesn't mean that I don't miss parts of it. There are things that I genuinely loved and still love about living there, but that doesn't undo what you notice once you finally step outside the system.
Wow. That was a very uh interesting, smart, kind of like take on her life and her experiences. I like how she observed and kind of like pinpoint those things. And it did like it was similar to how like America is similar to how Philippines think in some sense. Obviously they were our they freed us from the colonizers, but they instilled maybe their beliefs and they left some of their practices here. So that's why we're very Americanized, honestly. And that's why maybe it some of what she said is very true to how we do things over here. Yeah. Um, but like I said, I lived in Ghana too, so they're very traditional, but also British because colonized by British again. So it was a very different type of like thinking and process. And coming here, I honestly thought, oh, okay, this is gonna be better because it seemed freer, which is weird. Land of the free, right? It seemed freer, but then as you grow up and start experiencing things, you realize like this is not freedom. This is pissing me off. I don't know, but like now that I'm older, I just there's so many things that just aren't right. Like you see it clearly, and you're like, we put up with this for so many years. I can't believe I survived this system, and having punched someone in their face. But that's just me. And let me know if there are other videos. I don't want to talk because my mouth will get me in trouble. Um, if there are other videos that I want to check out, let me know down in the comments. And I will see you. Oh, if you like K drama, Teach You a Lesson is one of like the best right now. I am reacting to it on Patreon, link in the description. So go check it out. Amazing. If you love like people who fight for the oppressed, then watch that. It's really good. And yeah, it's in the link in the description. So check it out. Well, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.